before listening prayer, I was just in a cycle of trying harder, getting up every morning and saying, today I'm not going to get frustrated at my kids, and I'm just going to try harder and pray harder and honestly maybe do another Bible study and see if that would help me. But then those old patterns and just things that were established in me would crop back up again. A circumstance would come up and trying harder wasn't working anymore, and you'd wake up the next day and try harder again. It wasn't a peaceful place. I would have spurts of happiness and joy and catch glimpses of what I would want it to be like every day. But I couldn't sustain that peaceful, abundant life that I heard so many people talk about. A couple of years ago, we had a ministry here at Grace where we would meet on Monday mornings at 5 o'clock and pray. We called it Operation Mongoose. And so I was being obedient doing that every Monday morning, just coming quietly in just that dark sanctuary and praying for our community and our teachers and our school and just Grace and my own family. Somebody mentioned it in passing that they were having a listening prayer thing that afternoon, and I thought, well, I'll go see what that's about. And Debbie and Donna were there, and we were crammed in a small room down in the Encounter Grace room, and it was definitely a moment for me because it was like the whole universe crashed into that one room. The first time they spent a lot of time talking about the four voices that we hear. We can hear God's voice, we can hear the enemy's voice, we can hear our own voice, or just the voice of the world in general. And I was in a situation with my daughter in school, and I realized she was having a hard time, and I really realized that the voices she was hearing, struggling through those things, was not God's encouraging, loving voice. I had looked at it from an academic approach and thought, well, we'll just try harder and we'll just get more tutoring and we'll just go to an extra class, and really the pattern that I had been in my own life, and I was imposing that on her. And I was not looking at it from a spiritual approach, that the enemy was whispering lies to her every day sitting at that desk. And I went home that afternoon and I told her what I had learned, and I read that passage out of Isaiah 43, when you pass through the waters, you will not drown, and just how loved we are and how precious we are. And we talked about it at great length that day, and she said, I do hear that voice saying I can't do this test. And I said, well, that's not God's voice. And I learned today that He wants to speak to us all the time. And so that was really the start for me to seeing things not from trying harder academically, so to speak, but just learning to listen and to respond. My mom died when I was 16, and the enemy was right there to whisper a lie to me. And I believed it for a really long time, that if God was God, then this wouldn't have happened. If God's really good, then He would have stopped this from happening, this horrible pain for my family. Even before I knew about listening prayer, I remember being in that cycle of lies for several years after she passed. And I remember sitting in a church service and God really speaking and saying, this wasn't me, and you can let go of it right now, or you can hold on to it. But this is why I went to the cross, which is so interesting when we pray. The cross is a huge process when we pray with ladies and when we receive ministry ourselves. And that was what He said to me. This is why I went to the cross, for you to be free from this pain. And really not knowing anything about what I would learn years later, I did leave it at the cross that night. And I was tremendously blessed with a wonderful life with my husband and my girls. But I think in that moment, I was able to listen and receive truth. But that was the truth, that one moment I wanted to live on, rather than having those moments every day. I think we can get caught in the cycle of, well, I had this great moment with God 5 years ago, and you're living on that truth. But just like with the Israelites, He wanted to feed them every day in the desert, the manna. And that's what He wants for us every day. He wants to speak to us every day, and we can hear truth every day.